We live in a world our ancestors would barely recognize. Around the globe, the impact of human ingenuity is now everywhere. We've pushed back the limits of our planet at speeds, depths, and heights that would have left our forebears breathless. Driving all these achievements is humankind's extraordinary gift for invention. Through genius and inspiration, we've created exceptional solutions to complex problems, from the everyday to the spectacular. Some good and some not so good. This series celebrates the million ways our great inventions have transformed our world.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Let's go back, way back. Before cities, before agriculture, when humans were hunter-gatherers roaming the landscape, we've always been communicators. Speech probably emerged somewhere between 50,000 and 150,000 years ago. With speech came stories, knowledge passed from generation to generation. But there's a problem with spoken language. It's temporary. Once the words are said, they vanish into the air. If you wanted to remember something, you had to memorize it. If you wanted to tell someone far away, you had to travel there yourself. Early humans found ways around this. Cave paintings dating back over 40,000 years show us that our ancestors wanted to leave marks, to say, "We were here, this is what we saw." But these weren't writing. They were pictures, symbols, representations. Beautiful, meaningful, but not a system for recording language. The real breakthrough came when human societies became more complex. Around 10,000 BC, in the Fertile Crescent, the region stretching from modern-day Egypt through the Middle East to Iraq, something remarkable happened: agriculture. Instead of following herds and foraging for plants, people started growing crops and domesticating animals. They built permanent settlements. Villages became towns. Towns became cities. And with cities came complexity. Suddenly, you needed to keep track of things. How much grain is in the storehouse? Who owns which plot of land? What do I owe you for that goat? Memory wasn't enough anymore. You needed records. Enter Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in what is now Iraq. Around 3200 BC, in the ancient city of Uruk, Sumerian administrators faced a problem. Their city was thriving, bustling with trade and agriculture, but keeping track of transactions was becoming impossible. They needed a system, a way to record who owed what to whom, so they started making marks on clay tablets. Simple marks. A circular impression meant sheep. A cone shape meant grain. These weren't letters or words, they were tokens, physical representations of quantities and goods. The Sumerians had invented the earliest form of writing, pictographs. Pictographic writing is exactly what it sounds like, pictures representing objects. A drawing of a fish means fish. A drawing of a head means head. Simple, effective, but limited. You can represent concrete things, but what about abstract concepts? How do you draw freedom, or yesterday, or because? The Sumerians got creative. They began combining pictographs. A picture of a mouth plus a picture of water meant to drink. A picture of a mouth plus a picture of bread meant to eat. They were building a visual vocabulary, layering meanings to create more complex ideas. But drawing detailed pictures on clay is time-consuming and difficult. So the Sumerians simplified. Instead of drawing a complete fish, they used a few quick marks that suggested a fish. Instead of a detailed head, just a circle with a line. Over time, these simplified pictographs became more abstract, more symbolic. They were evolving into something new, cuneiform. Cuneiform gets its name from the Latin word cuneus, meaning wedge. Sumerian scribes used a reed stylus with a wedge-shaped tip to press marks into soft clay tablets. These wedge-shaped impressions could be made quickly and consistently. A few wedges arranged in different patterns could represent different sounds, syllables, or words. This was revolutionary. Writing was no longer just about recording objects. It was about recording language itself. Cuneiform could capture speech, stories, laws, and ideas. The clay tablets could be dried or baked, preserving the information indefinitely. For the first time in human history, knowledge could outlive its creator. The impact was immediate and profound. Mesopotamian cities became centers of administration, trade, and learning. Scribes, the people trained to read and write cuneiform, became essential members of society. They recorded transactions, wrote contracts, documented laws, and chronicled the deeds of kings. And we can still read these tablets today. Archaeologists have unearthed hundreds of thousands of cuneiform tablets from ancient Mesopotamia. Some are mundane, lists of grain or sheep. Others are epic, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known works of literature. Written around 2100 BC, it tells the story of a king's quest for immortality. It's a tale of friendship, loss, and the human condition. And it survived because someone pressed wedges into clay over 4,000 years ago. But Mesopotamia wasn't the only place where writing emerged. Around the same time, in ancient Egypt, a completely different system was developing: hieroglyphics. Egyptian hieroglyphics are perhaps the most beautiful writing system ever created. Intricate pictures of birds, eyes, hands, and symbols, each representing sounds, syllables, or concepts. The word hieroglyphics comes from Greek, meaning sacred carvings, because the Greeks believed these symbols were used exclusively by priests. But hieroglyphics were more versatile than that. The Egyptians used them for religious texts, monumental inscriptions, and official records. But here's the fascinating part. Hieroglyphics weren't practical for everyday use. Carving detailed symbols into stone or painting them on papyrus took time and skill. So the Egyptians developed two simpler scripts: hieratic for religious texts and demotic for everyday writing. These were cursive versions of hieroglyphics, faster and easier to write. Egyptian scribes were highly respected. Becoming a scribe meant years of training, memorizing hundreds of symbols and learning grammar, mathematics, and law. But it was worth it. Scribes enjoyed high social status, stable employment, and the privilege of literacy in a largely illiterate world. For over 3,000 years, hieroglyphics adorned the temples, tombs, and monuments of Egypt. They recorded the reigns of pharaohs, the construction of pyramids, and the religious beliefs that defined Egyptian culture. But then, something happened. As Egypt was conquered by Greeks, Romans, and eventually Arabs, knowledge of hieroglyphics faded. By the 4th century AD, no one could read them anymore. The meaning of thousands of years of Egyptian history was lost, that is, until 1799. During Napoleon's invasion of Egypt, French soldiers discovered a large stone slab near the town of Rosetta. This stone, the Rosetta Stone, had the same text written in 3 scripts: Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphics. Because scholars could read Greek, they had the key to deciphering hieroglyphics. It took decades, but in 1822, French scholar Jean-François Champollion cracked the code. He realized that hieroglyphics weren't just symbolic, they were phonetic, representing sounds as well as meanings. Suddenly, the silent stones of Egypt began to speak again. We could read the words of ancient pharaohs, priests, and scribes. The past came alive. While Mesopotamia and Egypt were developing their writing systems, another civilization was doing the same on the other side of the world: China. Around 1200 BC, during the Shang dynasty, the earliest Chinese writing appeared: oracle bones. Oracle bones were pieces of turtle shell or ox bone used in divination rituals. A question would be inscribed on the bone, heat applied, and the resulting cracks interpreted as answers from the gods. The questions and answers were recorded in early Chinese characters, making these oracle bones the oldest known examples of Chinese writing. Chinese characters are unique. Unlike alphabets, which represent individual sounds, Chinese characters represent entire words or concepts. This makes the writing system incredibly complex. There are tens of thousands of characters, though you only need to know a few thousand to be functionally literate. But this complexity has an advantage. Chinese characters are largely independent of pronunciation. Different regions of China have vastly different spoken languages, but they share the same written script. Someone speaking Mandarin and someone speaking Cantonese might not understand each other when speaking, but they can communicate perfectly in writing. Chinese writing has been in continuous use for over 3,000 years. It's the oldest writing system still in use today. From ancient oracle bones to modern digital text, Chinese characters connect the present to a distant past. But let's go back to the Middle East, because something revolutionary is about to happen. Something that will change writing forever. The invention of the alphabet. All the writing systems we've discussed so far, cuneiform, hieroglyphics, Chinese characters, are complex. They require memorizing hundreds or thousands of symbols. Learning to read and write is a lifelong endeavor, reserved for professional scribes and the elite. But what if there was a simpler way? What if you could represent all the sounds of a language with just a handful of symbols? Around 2000 BC, in the Levant, the region covering modern-day Syria, Lebanon, and Israel, people were experimenting with this idea. They were surrounded by powerful, literate civilizations, Egypt to the south, Mesopotamia to the east. They saw the power of writing, but found the existing systems too cumbersome. So they tried something radical. Instead of symbols representing whole words or syllables, what if each symbol represented a single sound, a consonant? You could then combine these symbols to spell out any word in your language. You'd only need to learn a couple dozen symbols instead of hundreds. This was the birth of the alphabet. The word alphabet itself comes from the first two letters of the Greek alphabet, alpha and beta, which in turn came from the Phoenician aleph and beth, meaning ox and house. The Phoenicians, a seafaring people based in what is now Lebanon, perfected and spread this alphabetic system. Phoenician traders traveled throughout the Mediterranean, establishing colonies and trade routes, and wherever they went, they brought their alphabet. The Phoenician alphabet had 22 letters, all consonants. You read the consonants and filled in the vowels based on context. It was efficient, flexible, and easy to learn. A merchant could learn to read and write in months, not years. Literacy was no longer the exclusive domain of scribes and priests. The Greeks borrowed the Phoenician alphabet around 800 BC, but they made a crucial innovation. They added vowels. In Phoenician, you might write BT and understand it as bat, bet, or but, depending on context. The Greeks decided to write the vowels explicitly: beta, alpha, tau. This removed ambiguity and made reading more accessible. The Greek alphabet became the foundation for the Latin alphabet, which is the alphabet you're reading right now. The Romans adopted and adapted Greek letters, spreading them throughout their empire. As Rome conquered Europe, the Latin alphabet came with it. Over time, it evolved into the various alphabets used across the Western world today. Meanwhile, other alphabets were developing in other regions. The Arabic alphabet, derived from the same ancient Semitic roots as Phoenician, spread with Islam across the Middle East, North Africa, and beyond. The Cyrillic alphabet, created by Byzantine missionaries in the 9th century AD, brought literacy to Slavic peoples and is still used in Russia and Eastern Europe. India developed its own writing systems, descended from the ancient Brahmi script. These scripts, including Devanagari, used for Hindi and Sanskrit, are technically abugidas, a hybrid between alphabets and syllabaries. The diversity of writing systems around the world is astonishing. Each one reflects the sounds, structure, and culture of the language it represents. But they all serve the same fundamental purpose: to capture language, to preserve thought, to communicate across time and space. And what did we do with this incredible tool? We transformed the world. Writing made possible the accumulation of knowledge. Before writing, each generation had to rely on memory and oral tradition. Information could be lost, distorted, or forgotten. With writing, knowledge became permanent. Libraries emerged, repositories of human wisdom. The Library of Alexandria, founded in Egypt around 300 BC, was one of the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world. It housed hundreds of thousands of scrolls, texts on philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and literature from across the known world. Scholars traveled from far and wide to study there. The loss of the library, destroyed over several centuries by fire and neglect, is considered one of the greatest tragedies in intellectual history. Writing made possible the creation of laws. The Code of Hammurabi, written in cuneiform around 1750 BC, is one of the oldest surviving legal codes. It established rules for justice, property rights, and social conduct. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, comes from this code. By writing down laws, societies could ensure they were applied fairly and consistently. Justice was no longer arbitrary. Writing made possible literature. The Epic of Gilgamesh, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, the Hebrew Bible, the Indian Mahabharata, the Chinese Confucian Analects. These texts shaped cultures, defined values, and inspired generations. They survived because they were written down. Writing made possible history. The Greek historian Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BC, is often called the father of history. He traveled extensively, recording the customs, wars, and wonders of the ancient world. His work, written on papyrus scrolls, preserved knowledge that would otherwise be lost. Writing made possible science. Ancient Greek mathematicians like Euclid wrote treatises on geometry that are still studied today. Arab scholars preserved and expanded upon Greek and Indian knowledge during the medieval period, writing texts on algebra, optics, and medicine. The scientific revolution of the 16th and 17th centuries was built on a foundation of written knowledge, shared and debated across Europe. But for most of history, literacy was rare. Writing materials were expensive. Papyrus, parchment made from animal skins, and later paper were costly and time-consuming to produce. Books were copied by hand, one at a time. A single book could take months to produce and cost a fortune. This meant that for centuries, literacy and education were privileges of the wealthy and powerful. Most people lived their entire lives without ever learning to read or write. They relied on priests, scribes, and officials to interact with the written world on their behalf. But that was about to change. In 1440, in the German city of Mainz, a goldsmith named Johannes Gutenberg invented something that would democratize knowledge: the printing press. Gutenberg's printing press used movable type, individual metal letters that could be arranged into words, inked, and pressed onto paper. Once a page was printed, the letters could be rearranged for the next page. This meant books could be produced quickly, cheaply, and in large quantities. The impact was staggering. Before Gutenberg, there were perhaps 30,000 books in all of Europe. 50 years after his invention, there were over 12 million. The printing press made books affordable. Ideas spread faster than ever before. The Protestant Reformation, the Scientific Revolution, the Enlightenment, all were fueled by the printing press and the spread of literacy. As books became common, more people learned to read and write. Public education emerged. Literacy rates soared. By the 19th century, in many parts of Europe and America, most people could read and write. Knowledge was no longer the exclusive property of the elite. And then came the next revolution, the typewriter. Invented in the 1860s and perfected over the following decades, the typewriter made writing faster and more legible. Businesses adopted it enthusiastically. The typewriter created a new profession, the typist, often women, who became essential workers in offices around the world. The 20th century brought more innovations. Photocopiers made it easy to duplicate documents. Computers revolutionized writing, editing, and publishing. Word processors replaced typewriters. The internet made it possible to share written information instantly across the globe. Today, we live in a world saturated with text. Emails, text messages, social media posts, websites, ebooks. We produce more written content in a single day than ancient civilizations produced in centuries. Writing has become so ubiquitous, so effortless, that we forget how extraordinary it is. But let's not forget the human cost. Learning to write is hard. Children spend years mastering it. Different languages, different scripts, different challenges. Chinese students must memorize thousands of characters. Arabic students must learn to write from right to left, connecting letters in fluid cursive forms. English students must grapple with inconsistent spelling and irregular grammar, and billions of people worldwide still cannot read or write. According to UNESCO, over 750 million adults lack basic literacy skills. This denies them access to education, employment, and full participation in society. Literacy remains one of the most important social justice issues of our time. But progress continues. Organizations worldwide work to promote literacy. Technology helps. Apps and software make learning to read and write more accessible. Voice recognition allows people to interact with devices without typing. Audiobooks and podcasts offer alternatives to written text. Yet writing endures, because there's something irreplaceable about the written word. It's permanent, precise, and powerful. It allows us to think deeply, to refine our ideas, to communicate with clarity and nuance. Writing is thinking made visible, and it's evolving. Emojis add emotional context to digital text. GIFs and memes blend images and words in new ways. Social media has created new forms of written expression, abbreviated, informal, immediate. Some worry that this is degrading language. Others see it as natural evolution, language adapting to new technologies and contexts. But the fundamentals remain: symbols representing sounds, sounds forming words, words conveying meaning. From Sumerian clay tablets to text messages, the principle is the same. We are still making marks that mean something. And those marks have given us everything: history, literature, law, science, philosophy. The written word is the foundation of civilization. It connects us to the past, allows us to understand the present, and helps us imagine the future. So the next time you write something, anything, a note, an email, a text, take a moment to appreciate the miracle you're performing. You're participating in a tradition that stretches back over 5,000 years. You're using an invention that changed what it means to be human. Because writing isn't just a tool. It's a testament to human creativity, our desire to communicate, to remember, to endure. The invention of writing didn't just record history, it made history possible. And the story continues. Every word we write adds another chapter. That is all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Until then, I'll see you next time.